Welcome to the MS&Me Radio Network. The broadcast shows are for informational and entertainment purposes only. They are not designed to provide listeners with specific personal, medical, or counseling advice. Individuals with a medical issue should always consult their healthcare provider. MS&Me is not responsible for content of individual shows. The views expressed by show hosts or their guests are their own. Enjoy the show.
Hi, I want to welcome everyone to Live in Hope, Focus on Healing, part of the MS&Me Radio Network. I'm Kelly Alderton, your host. I'm a wife, mom, motivational speaker, entrepreneur, and author. My book, Waking Up from MS, My Journey to Health, Healing, and Living Symptom-Free, details my over 30-year journey living with and beating MS naturally. And I'm so excited today for my next guest, Shawna Moore from Florida, because Shawna and I have developed a friendship and respect for each other as we help people in the MS community learn more natural ways to deal with their own MS. Welcome to the broadcast, Shawna.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
I'm so excited. I mean, I know your story, and I just am so thrilled for you to share this with our listeners. Shawna, can you start off telling us, let's start out at the beginning, what led up to your MS diagnosis?
Sure. I was 21 years old when I had my first attack, and I had just had my son. He was about a year old. Had a perfectly healthy, I was young, so I had a super easy pregnancy. And then when he was about a year old, I woke up with vertigo, really bad vertigo. Like I lifted my head out of bed and the entire room spun. I could not walk without hanging onto the wall. I was incredibly dizzy. So I went into, and some other things kind of happened during this. It was kind of a 30-day period of my face dropped. I had Bell's palsy. My left ear started ringing. I had tinnitus really bad. And then I eventually lost the hearing completely in my left ear. And all of this kind of went over the course of a month. So when it first happened, my husband was in the military and we went into the base doctor and they said, oh, you must have an inner ear infection. Sent me home, gave my husband a week off work. And that was that. So it took me about 30 days to recover from all of that, and I never thought again about it. 3 years later, maybe 3 or 4 years later, I was 25, and it was the year 2000. I woke up with a really sore left eye, and my side, the skin in the middle of my stomach, like on my left side, was numb. And I called my doctor and she said, and it was funny because I had just seen my doctor like a day or two before. And those of us with MS know that stress is a huge trigger.
Absolutely.
And I had a kind of a stressful time in my marriage at that point. And I had seen her 2 days prior to this. And she said, so when I called her and said, my eye is sore and I kind of think something's wrong with my vision and my side is numb, she said, well, you're really stressed. It's probably stress. Maybe you got something in your eye. And she really kind of blew me off. So I, of all things, because it's your eye, and my eye was getting blurry.
Right.
So I went to the mall because I thought, I'm 25 years old. I don't know what to do, but my eye hurts. So I'm going to the mall to go to LensCrafters and see what's wrong with my eye. By the time I got to the LensCrafters, my left eye was completely black. I couldn't see anything.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, so I was really freaked out. And it was funny because the ophthalmologist guy, he was real young, he said to me, he put up like the biggest F that you've ever seen. I'm like, I don't care how big you put that letter up. I can't see anything.
Right.
So he says, this could be, he goes, you need to go to the doctor. This could be MS. He's the one that told me it could be MS.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was referred to, so then I went to a neurologist and I told him about what had happened to me 3 years before that. And he said, I think you have MS, but we're going to send you to get an MRI. And I went to a neuro-ophthalmologist at one point and saw the very inflamed nerve that went from my eye to my brain. I was diagnosed very quickly, I think because of the optical neuritis. I don't know
Yes.
about you, but I've never heard of anyone getting optical neuritis that doesn't have MS. I don't know if other people get it or not.
Right.
Seems to be a very quick way to diagnose
Typical,
symptoms.
right. Mm-hmm.
I did not have any lesions in my brain because the first MRI they just did my brain, and they said, we don't see lesions. He said, but I still think you have MS. So then he did my spinal cord, and I did have lesions there. So he said, you have MS. And I was pretty freaked out at that age with a 4-year-old at home.
Absolutely right. I definitely understand. And so they gave you the diagnosis, and obviously you're freaked out. Had you heard before at that age, Shawna, at all about MS?
No, I thought, what is this? Jerry's kids? No, I didn't know. I
Right.
didn't know what it was.
Right. And that happened to me when I was diagnosed. I was diagnosed in high school. Some of them came up to me and say, "Hey, are you just like Jerry's kid?" And I didn't have a clue. I didn't know. But that just goes to show you until you experience it yourself, and that's when we start to delve in and get the information. So on your diagnosis, here you still have a very young family. What did they tell you to do as soon as you were diagnosed? They came off, they said you had the lesions on your spine. What did they do next with you?
They did what every doctor does to everyone, and they hand you a bunch of pamphlets and say, you can take this drug or this drug or this drug. I think at that time there were only a few.
Mm-hmm.
And I took Avonex for the first year. And it was miserable. I mean, that's an intramuscular injection. Afterwards, you feel fluish and you shiver and shake and try to get to sleep. And it's very miserable.
Mm-hmm.
I did it for a year. And then I just was like, forget this. I feel better without it. I'm not doing it. And I was very, like, for the first few years of my MS, I was very on and off. Like, I would do what the doctor said, and then I would just be like, no, I'm tired of that. I'm not doing it anymore. I was a very defiant patient, which was probably to my benefit.
Sure,
I did
absolutely.
more than I could have, probably. But then, I mean, I guess I would just lead forward more quickly to bring this story a little quicker, is that for the first few years, I was kind of a typical relapsing remitting patient where my arm would, get weak and go numb, and it would be like a little spell. I would take some steroids and it would get better, or I'd have one leg that went numb for a little while and it would get better. And then as time went on, probably towards my late 30s, I really became secondary progressive and just was declining faster and faster, and things just weren't healing anymore. So I think it was 2002 when the bottom of my feet went numb, and a little bit after that my hands went numb. But when my feet became numb, it was like my whole body started to hurt, because it was kind of hard to compensate for that. And
Sure.
my legs were getting weaker and everything just started to hurt. And then my neurologist would say, well, you have fibromyalgia, you have all the symptoms of fibromyalgia, and that's what all your pain is. And I had chronic migraines, which I still have some issues with. But
Shawna, at that time when they diagnosed you with secondary progressive, were you on a DMD at that time?
Off and on. I took beta-seron for a while, and then I didn't like that. And then I took Copaxone for a while, and I had that reaction where you feel like you're going to die, and they tell you, oh, it's perfectly normal. And so I wouldn't take that anymore. So I kind of was, again, like just kind of off and on the drugs, because I would kind of buy into what my doctor said, and I would take them for a while, and then I would get off of them again. But I did, I think in 2014 to early 15 was kind of my last straw. I agreed to take Tysabri, so I took it for about a year and a half. By that point, my neurologist, we were living in Dallas, he had me on 1,800 milligrams of Neurontin, which is gabapentin.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And 30 milligrams of baclofen a day, and the Tysabri. So right around my 40th birthday, at this point, the walking had gotten so bad that, I mean, I would cry. I could go through the grocery store but I couldn't like go to the mall, you know, or
Right.
go to the airport or, you know, do anything without a wheelchair that was very long.
And Shawna, let's talk about the Tisabri for one. Well, the gabapentin,
Yeah.
anybody that's on, they need to really investigate that because and Shawna, you and I have seen firsthand many people come about and say once they got off of that, so many of their symptoms went away. So we have to think about that for our listeners. You know, some of the symptoms you have can also not be MS related. They could be drug side effects, which we see very frequently. And Sean and I talk to thousands of people every day on this very topic. Another thing, and let's talk about the Tisabri, because I know it's a favorite thing for doctors to prescribe, but you have to, again, look at that particular drug that gives people the brain infection. It's called progressive multifocal leukoencephalopathy. You'll hear it as PML. That is a deadly brain infection. Now, why would we take a drug that gives us a deadly brain infection when MS is not in itself inherently a death sentence? Right. It doesn't make any sense. So
we don't have a fatal disease, and we're going to take a toxic drug that would give us, you know, the side effect of possibly getting a fatal disease that makes you more disabled if it doesn't kill you.
Right. And so you were on that. You were on the gabapentin. They had you just on a plethora of drugs. What did you do at that point?
So I think my neurologist had just wore me down, you know,
Sure.
and I had agreed to all these things. Right around my 40th birthday, I'm 43 now, I'll be 44 next month. Right around my 40th birthday, I woke up with shingles, which to me was an old person thing. You know, you're supposed to be 60 or 70 when you get shingles.
Right.
So I just thought, you know, I can't do this anymore. I'm like rock bottom now. I feel miserable. I cannot think straight, which again is the gabapentin and all this stuff. I could not function. I was on disability. I could not function. So I just quit. I just never went back to my neurologist. I never went back and got any more Tisabri. And I walked into a functional medicine doctor in Dallas. And I told her I'm on this 1,800 milligrams of Neurontin and this 30 milligrams of baclofen, and I just quit the Tisabri. And there's a diet I want to try. It was the Anne Burroughs protocol because I knew I had candida issues, and I felt like that was something I read her book, and I thought that's something I have to address first before I do anything else.
Sure.
And so she agreed, and she said, you know, gabapentin, if you don't have a seizure, this is what she told me. I advise you check with a doctor. You know, don't listen to me. I'm not a doctor. But she told me you can quit the gabapentin because you don't have a seizure disorder. And then the baclofen, I just weaned off a little bit slowly. So I was off of both of those drugs. And Anne's diet had like a questionnaire. You could like write down your symptoms every month and kind of, I would do like every 3 months, I would write down, I would do the quiz. And the first score I had on her quiz was like a 356. I did that diet for 16 months religiously. It's like completely no sugar, like hardly any fruit at all, no processed food, no soy, no corn, I mean, just very, very strict. I did that for 16 months.
And Shawna, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I want to describe to people what the Candida cleanse is or what the protocol you were talking about, because Candida is an overgrowth of yeast in the body. And it affects every aspect of your health and what diseases you may encounter as well. So, okay, so to get back to it, so you were on that for 16 months. It is rigorous. I know it is. And how did you feel?
I couldn't have done it without help, without other people's support. I felt better every single day. And every 3 months, I recorded my symptoms, and by the end, my score was like 118 from 356. I mean, it kind of gives you a percentage of how much better I felt.
Okay.
And how improved I was. I still wasn't walking as well as I wanted to at that point, but I hadn't started really exercising yet. But I felt a lot better. Like, nutrition matters. And my neurologist had told me, you can do your diet, your herbs, whatever you want to do, but it's not going to make you better. That's what the doctors are telling people with MS.
Right.
Which is tragic.
It is tragic because we know, I mean, diet is one facet to healing. We know there's other, we have to heal the body. We have to repair the body. And diet is a key piece of that puzzle. So we know too much now to just act like diet will not be something that helps us on our journey to health and healing like it has been for both you and I.
Right. And it's like the gut healing,
Yep.
like I did a lot of that, just aloe. And, I just feel like there's so much toxic burden from food that if you don't clean up the diet first, it's a big part of it.
So you did that diet and you were feeling better, but still not 100%. What did you do next?
So the next thing I did was Coimbra protocol. A friend of mine that doesn't even have MS just said to me, "Are you looking at this Coimbra protocol? You need to look at that." And I'd heard of it like in the back of my head before, but I had never really looked very deep into it. So I joined the Facebook page and I just started reading all the files and all the posts from people about the protocol, and I was very intrigued. So I had moved to Florida at that point, so I took the files from that group and I brought them to my new functional medicine doctor. And this was the first day that I met Dr. Cole, because I had seen someone else in his office, but I had never seen him. So I handed him the files and I said, "This is just something I want to try." And he took them from me and he said, this is the kind of doctor he is. He said, "You're the boss. You're my patient. I'll check it out."
I love him.
I just adore him. He's he's my family now. 2 weeks later, his office called me and said, "Dr. Cole wants to start your vitamin D protocol now." And I was like, "Really?" He really took me seriously.
That's great. And let's explain to everybody, the Quambre protocol is from a neurologist, Dr. Quambre, from Brazil. And I know we've done talks on this before, but it's the high dose vitamin D to beat MS. And people are I think it has a 95% success rate. So definitely well worth looking at, such a great natural way to heal. And so that's what you started on. So he was all in. And then what did he have you do when he said, okay, he's ready to see you on this new protocol? What did you do next?
Well, I started slow with him because this was new to him and new to me. So I kind of let him feel it out with me. So we started slow. He learned, I learned, we kind of just went along. I started at 40,000. I eventually went to 75, and then now I'm at 125,000 IUs a day. But we went through it slowly, learned it. Well, then last fall, he ended up flying to Brazil to actually learn the protocol from Dr. Coimbra in Brazil. So now he's fully trained and he helps all kinds of people with all kinds of different autoimmune diseases using the protocol.
And that's a great point. You must go through a trained doctor. This is not a protocol you can do on your own. You cannot just, be reckless and get on a high dose vitamin D protocol, because you could have serious consequences. So you definitely want to talk to a functional medical doctor, or you can search online for Quambre protocol doctors and really start on that journey. But do not do this on your own. Absolutely not.
You cannot. You have to follow a certain diet. You have to worry about calcium levels and calcium leaching from your bones. It's very, very safe if it's done correctly, but the 95% success rate is from people who are doing it correctly. If you don't do it correctly, you're not going to have those results. So yeah, you need your labs monitored. It's very easy, it's very reasonable, and it's very safe. So from there, as I started that, January of 18, I joined a gym and I just got on the treadmill and weights and everything, and I just started walking again. And I just kept walking and walking and walking, and now I can do like 4 miles a day. And I went back to work this week.
Congratulations. That's a big step, especially for someone who was disabled, who was diagnosed with secondary progressive MS. I mean, this is a huge milestone for you. So I want to congratulate you. And really, how are you? So obviously you're feeling much better. Now, being on this protocol, I know is a huge part of your life now. Are you doing anything else? I know you said exercise, which is fabulous. You're doing the Quambre, protocol. What other therapies, Shawna, are you doing, or do you recommend for people on this journey to beating MS?
I recommend Atlas orthogonal, because I know we've had in the group that you and I work together in, and a lot of people we talk to, there's been amazing success with that. My Atlas is off, and it continues to be off. And when I go in for treatments, my Atlas orthogonal provider moves my neck back into place and it feels great. And then by the time I go back, it's out. So I'm having trouble with it holding. Some people, it only takes 1 or 2 visits, but for me, it's kind of been, I've had lifelong issues with my neck. So it just kind of depends, but I think that chiropractic and Atlas are important. I've done, what else have I done? I do massage. I keep toxins out of my life as much as possible. So anything that I use, like laundry soap, deodorant, chemicals on my skin, I try to keep everything natural in that respect, because I just feel like MS really and all these diseases are a toxic burden our bodies couldn't take. Yes. And at some point, our bodies said, too many toxins.
That's a great point, Shawna, because everybody thinks MS is the beginning, but no, the MS diagnosis, your MS diagnosis is the end result of that toxic burden, the breakdown in your body. And that comes to the point where we have to say, whoa, we have to take a step back and look what got us up to this point, because only then can we start dealing with it in the right ways. But this, again, this isn't the beginning. This is the end result of a breakdown in the body. And so that's how we have to look at it. So, and that's great that you're looking, I like how you said the toxic burden, and that comes in many different forms. That could be stress, that could be your diet, that could be chemicals, that could be the way you think. Are you doing anything as far as, we know the mind, Shawna, is so critical, the way we think about things, the way we react to things is so critical in this healing journey. Are you doing anything in that aspect?
Yeah, I'm not really great at like calming and meditating and things like that, but I'm a really mild-mannered person. But I will tell you this, I set my mind to this. When I decided that I was going to heal, I told myself every day that I was going to be well. And I think that's a very important part of it.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit more about that, Shawna, because, I often talk about that. You just said you were going to be well. That was it. You didn't have a plan B. This was just it. And I did the same thing. See, the thing that affected me was my pediatric doctor said, Kelly, there will be a cure for MS in 5 years.
Yeah, so my first doctor said that too.
Right. So, but that, obviously that didn't happen since it's now 30 years later for me, but I had to figure it out on my own. But the bottom line is my doctor said there would be a cure. So in my mind, I didn't think this was an incurable condition. Now, what are many of our fellow MSers seeing now, Shawna? They're saying if you don't get on a drug, you're going to be paralyzed. If you're going to be in a wheelchair, you have to get on a drug. This is not curable. No matter what you do, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, they're just deciding to tell people that now. Like, oh, you're going to be more disabled. When we were diagnosed, my first doctor was great. My husband said to him, we were in our 20s. My husband said to him, can she still drink? He said, go to parties, have more babies, have fun, live your life. That was what my doctor was like back then. But later it became doctors that were like, you're going to be disabled,
Right.
You're in a wheelchair, they're just drug pushing, awful. Some neurologists are good, but there's very few. I won't see a neurologist again.
Right, I will not either. And that's the thing, they're coming off of our fear, they're fear-mongering, and that in itself can be disabling to people, because if you sit here and think, what does it matter what I do? This is incurable, and I'm going to end up in a wheelchair. What does that do to someone? So that's why you have to focus on healing. Like you said, Shawna, I am going to heal. I am going to beat this. And that was it. You didn't have a plan B. That was just what you knew what was going to happen.
And I still don't. I went back to work, and I'm going to work the next 20 years until I'm ready to retire. I'm just deciding that's just how it's going to be.
Right. And that's the one thing we know. Whatever we're telling ourselves, whatever we're telling our body, and your neurologist will tell you this too, you can manifest symptoms that you read about or you hear about. Why can't we manifest good health? Why can't we medicine?
Healing too.
Right.
Proving it all the time that placebo effect is a real thing. If you believe that you're getting well, you're going to get well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, Shawna, we just have a couple minutes left here on the broadcast. What words of wisdom do you have for people maybe that they may have not ever heard before? Because obviously this is a little bit radical because we are not talking about drugs, but what would you recommend for somebody right now listening to this broadcast?
Yeah, well, absolutely. If I knew the things now that, if I was newly diagnosed, if you have to do something more aggressive, if you're even considering a DMD, a disease modifying drug, please look at Coimbra protocol instead, because it is highly, highly, way more effective than any of those drugs. Those drugs are lucky if they can give you a 30%, and who knows what they really studied and how it was studied and what their patients were like. This is a toxic burden, and I've seen my genetics. And Dr. Coimbra says that people with MS, okay, we've always known that people away from the equator get more MS. Mm-hmm. I grew up in Portland, Oregon. It's very cloudy. I did not get any sun growing up, probably not very much. I mean, I did in the summer, but my vitamin D receptors are both mutated. Yeah. So there's 2 vitamin D receptors that you can see like in your 23andMe reports, and mine are both mutations. So he says that we just don't uptake the vitamin D. So don't think that you can just go out in the sun and get enough vitamin D. You're probably lacking. And he tells people even if they don't have MS, they need to take 10,000 IUs a day. Absolutely. So it's a very important hormone. It's not actually a vitamin, it's a hormone, and it's something we really need. So I just recommend that people, get the toxins out of your body. Think of your disease as detox, because I don't think any of these diseases are any different. I don't think it's different if you get Crohn's disease or if you get MS or if you get osteoarthritis. I think they're all the same. We just have to detox them out of our systems because your body wants to heal.
Absolutely. Yes, our bodies were made to heal if we give it the tools and the resources, the things it needs to heal. Shawna, thank you so much for being on the broadcast today. I just know this is going to help so many people. And if you need or would like to connect with Shawna, you can get in touch with her on Facebook under Shawna McGarry Moore. And check out her story, and she's just such a great inspiration to people. And just know that you are not alone. And again, live in hope, focus on healing. Shawna, thank you so much for being on here with me, girl, and I will be talking with you again soon. Hopefully we can chat again another time so we can bring some more great information to the MS community. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Kelly.
Take care. Bye-bye.